Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to be a part of our community, head over to our website, missionmatters.com/community to join. All right, so today is a very special episode. It's a celebration. We have Dr. Lyda Garcia on the line, and she is an associate professor of meat science, extension meat specialist at The Ohio State University. And I'm proud to announce our most recent author in our Texas Leaders Edition, Volume 1. Here's the book. We made it. Come on, Lyda. How are you feeling?
I'm great. I've got mine as well. This is exciting.
All right, Lyda. So we have so much to talk about today. We'll go into the book content, of course. I'd also like to know more about your experience with FFA, of course, and we'll get into your background. But before we do all of that, we'll start this episode the way that we start them all, with what we like to call our Mission Matters Minute. So, Lyda, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Lyda, what mission matters to you?
Well, it's a very interesting question, Adam, because I consider myself a servant leader. And since I was very young, I've always felt that I have been on a mission, and my mission has been to serve those who need whatever it is that I can help with, to help make this a better world.
It's great. Love bringing mission-based individuals on the line to share, why they do what they do, how they do it, and really what we can all learn from that, so we all, grow together. So again, great having you on the show. So just to get us kicked off here, where did all of this start for you? Like, how did you get on this journey to becoming, a doctor, higher education? You have a lot going on. Like how did all that begin for you?
Well, it started at home, to be very honest. My parents were one of my strongest influencers in my life, my father is what I would have considered a Texas cowboy, with a third grade level education, maybe that far. And my mother was a public school teacher with a master's degree. And so little did my sister and I know that as we were growing up, a lot of their strengths and knowledge and experiences were being sprinkled on us. And without planning, I actually combined both of their worlds into one, into that production, agriculture, and the education, right? And my hometown was very, very monumental to where I am today, because it started with those agricultural classes in high school that just opened doors.
Did you always know that you wanted to be in agriculture, or were you in an agricultural family? Like, how did all that begin?
I knew that I wanted to be in agriculture, although I didn't know of the various pathways available. Now in South Texas, where I grew up, we know of the veterinarian world, no doubt. We know of the vet tech, but then we also know about being the rancher, right? So growing up, I was very limited of what I knew, but it was a matter of me just taking chances as I took a step, and then a step after another. And then by the time I knew it, I'm here in Ohio, right? A South Texas native, and now in Ohio, been here 8.5 years, getting back to the world of what was given to me.
Yeah, I want to stick in those early years a little bit longer. So when did FFA, Texas FFA, how were you introduced to that process?
Well, it's a very funny story. And actually, I was reminded when I was visiting with Aaron Alejandro not too long ago, I didn't always know about high schools offering agriculture. Growing up, I was really big into sports. I loved softball. I loved volleyball and basketball. And as I went into junior high, I was very engulfed in sports. And believe it or not, I was in the band as well. And I was actually pretty good at it. I was always first, second, or third seat, right? And so when our freshman year came, I decided to roll into band. But then when I experienced my first 2 weeks of classes and in band and so forth, I realized that that's not really what I wanted to do. So in visiting with our high school counselor, she said, well, at this point of the game, you have a choice, either stay in band or enroll into an agricultural class.
Hmm.
And I said, ag, that's interesting. And so that's when I decided to leave band and enroll in our first introduction to animal science class with Mr.
Mhm.
Juan Flores and others. And the rest is history. That's how it started.
Yeah. How do you think that Texas FFA or just FFA, how do you think it prepares its future leaders? Because I could tell you, like I went to the most recent convention and we did this big book signing and we did all this stuff for your book. And I tell you, it's my second convention. I'm already looking forward to my third. I think it's going to be in Houston next year. I'm already planning. I'm like, Aaron, I'm going to Houston, man. This year was in Dallas. Last year I think was in Fort Worth off the top of my head, but like I'm a fan. Like when I get into that convention feel, when I get to see these the members and I get to see their plans and it energizes me literally for the year, Lyda. How do you feel that those early years kind of prepared you, or what do they do? What kind of effect do they have on the members?
Well, the one thing that we need to keep in mind is that all these opportunities of CDEs, right? Like these leadership type opportunities, the competition. For someone like me who came from a small South Texas town 40 miles east of the Texas-Mexico border,
Yeah.
we knew of things outside of our town, maybe beyond the city limits of San Antonio, right? Because at the time, the internet was not, it wasn't available to us.
Yeah.
But watching movies, we knew that there was a different world out there. But at least for me personally, it was because I competed. I took advantage of these opportunities of competition in the form of, at the time, it was land judging, and then I did livestock judging, and we were very good at these events that our ag teachers would travel, especially with livestock judging,
Yeah.
where he's the one who opened the door for me to see beyond the limits of San Antonio, Texas. And I experienced West Texas, North Texas, East Texas, talk about just one state, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't get enough. And then let's not forget that a lot of these practices that we experienced at Angelo State University, Texas Tech University, Clarendon College, Tarleton State, Sam Houston,
Yeah.
that was eye opener for someone like me, because in South Texas we knew of certain universities, and of course the big ones like Texas A&M University and the University of Texas, but it was because of FFA that I realized there was a bigger world.
Yeah.
And I took advantage. Let me tell you, I at the time, I think back and I think I took risks, right?
Yeah.
But I also trusted that it was always going to work out. I didn't know how,
Yeah.
but it did.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, Adam, to date, I still follow that practice. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to, right? I have faith that the process is going to take care of it.
Yeah. And I'm told, and I've seen it like that, and I've heard it in Aaron's story. I've heard it, and now, I mean, it started with Aaron's story, but now I've heard it literally from hundreds of kids. Is that that blue and gold jacket, like that's an equalizer. That's a level playing field. That's a matter of belonging, whether you're from South Texas or it doesn't matter where you're from. Really, it's just saying that like if you're wearing that jacket, like it's kind of understood that you're all part of that same family.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Talk to me about, kind of the South Texas culture, maybe how that helped make you, who you are today.
Well, there's a lot of pride in South
Yeah.
Texas. I'll be honest, but with that pride comes a lot of, a heavy work ethic. When I was growing up, that was expected, to work
Yeah.
hard. And my parents were older than the rest of the parents in my grade. They had expectations,
Yeah.
and the expectations were, you're going to work hard, you're going to put in the right effort, you're
Yeah.
not going to complain, and if it doesn't work out, figure it out, right?
Yeah.
They didn't. I don't think they had time, for as old as they were, that they didn't have time for me to be a kid. sometimes, which
Mhm.
I think was great for someone like me and my type A personality. Like that
Mhm.
was ideal for me. There's a lot of pride in our culture. You know,
Yeah.
we're a mix of the Mexican traditions, a mix of the American traditions, and then there's some German influence down there. And let's
Mm.
not forget the Native Americans, right?
Mm.
There was a big group of the Apaches down there along with others. So we're
Yeah.
just a mixture. And we prided ourselves in our families and our family roots.
Mm.
And well, let's not forget about the food, right? I mean, we pride ourselves with the food as well. And so at the time when you're growing up, you don't really appreciate it
Mhm.
until you leave. And I didn't realize how strong I really was because
Mm.
of my culture until I
Mm.
left. When I left South Texas, when where I was a part of the majority, being a
Mhm.
Hispanic, we grew up very strict Catholics, and I
Yeah.
left 11 or 9 hours away north, where I then suddenly became a part of the minority, and Catholicism was not the predominant religion. You talk about an eye opener.
Mm.
It was because of our firm roots, our strong roots that I would say is the foundation of who I am.
Yeah.
Especially if you believe in something and you know it's for the greater good and it's right,
Mhm.
you fight for it.
Yeah. It's great. So in the book, I mean, there's a lot of different things that you could have written about, and I found it pretty unique that it goes to maybe your style or your journey, and that's trust the process. And as I was kind of reading through the chapter, and I'm thinking about things, I've never quite put it that way. And I guess we're all in our own, God's working with us all in our own processes, in our own journeys. But kind of the way you proposed it, trust the process. Why this angle? Like, why now? Why did you feel this was important to share with the readers?
Well, I feel that we've evolved since I was young,
Mm.
which is a great thing to
Yeah.
admit, right? Because that's the whole point in life.
Yeah.
But in just working with the students today and from
Mm.
yesterday and going to work with the students of tomorrow, they come with so many strengths. I
Mm.
strengths that a lot of my generation didn't have. But I
Mhm.
also see that there are fears of the what if,
Mhm.
right? And I appreciate the students caring. I mean, we have to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But they're so afraid of what if it doesn't work out? What if, right? And
Mhm.
and in continuously working with these students with what I do every day, I for some reason, when I meditated, that's what came to mind. Talk about
Mhm.
trust the process, right? Trusting the process. And I mean it because that's
Yeah.
really what I've relied on since
Mhm.
I was very young. And I only wanted to maybe plant a seed with our readers and our listeners, right?
Mhm.
Of it's gonna be okay, right?
Mm. Mm.
That was the purpose of why I chose that topic.
Yeah. And so kind of digging a little bit deeper into the book. So understand your audience, start with the end in mind, learn from the best. So for all the audience, by the way, watching this, we're going to dive into a couple of these, but we're not going to do them all. Why? Because I want you to buy the book still, right? Like go grab a copy of that. There'll be a link in the show notes. So you can just click on it and pick up a copy. But just starting with understanding your audience. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, that actually started when I was in junior high with my mother. And my
Mm.
mother, who was a public school teacher, also taught in the evenings,
Mm.
um, GED,
Yeah.
and then was also a part of the amnesty program with the Laredo Community College to help those from Mexico who wanted to obtain citizenship, right?
Mm.
This was their way of obtaining credit and going through the process. Well, I was fortunate. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I was
Yeah.
fortunate to teach at night with mom. And if
Mm.
there was one thing my mother
Wow.
was, you have to understand your audience. You can't
Mm.
teach them the way they teach you in school. You have to understand them. And if you want to be effective,
Mm.
that's also part of the deal here.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm what, 14, 13 maybe. And then when I was a freshman, I continued to help mom.
Yeah.
Um, I realized that when I understood them, maybe learned about their families, going back to the culture,
Mm.
understanding their struggles, their whatever it was, that helped
Mhm.
me shape my thoughts and then polish my delivery,
Mm.
but with that educational message in mind,
Yeah.
right? And I understood it when I was only what, 14, like I said, and
Yeah.
I had this 60-some-year-old man who didn't appreciate this kid
Yeah.
teaching him mathematics. Didn't
Mm.
appreciate it. My mother was the one who said, "Get to know him,
Mm.
understand him a little bit, but with boundaries, of course."
Yeah.
And then you fast forward to now I'm an undergraduate student at Texas Tech University. I'm working an internship at Cargill. It's a beef plant in Freona, Texas. And that was the summer that, things were breaking. Things were just out of control. There were,
Mm.
the employees were asked to work overtime. And then suddenly now this intern, 21-year-old,
Yeah.
is asked to step up, and now from an intern, I'm now having to um, serve in the role as a supervisor. And now I
Mhm.
have 65 employees to lead,
Yeah.
and talk about them not liking having to answer to a 21-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
So I called my father and I said, "What do I do here?" Because he was such a people person. My goodness.
Mm.
He- I wish I had what he had. And
Mhm.
he's the one who reminded me, get to know them, know where they are, and
Yeah.
be able to then send your message, right? I mean, in his own words. And that was the final straw for me.
Mhm.
As an educator, if I really wanted to be impactful and
Mm.
make change, because I I would say that I try to be a positive catalyst for change.
Yeah.
That's what I've done.
Mm.
I and anytime I'm asked to speak, wherever it
Mhm.
is, or a demonstration, I always ask, who's my audience?
Mhm.
Youth, adult learners, are they families? Are they officials? Whoever it is,
Mhm.
but still keep the objectives and the concepts of whatever topic I'm talking about at the
Yeah.
forefront. And it matters. It matters.
Yes, it does. So Lyda, I'm curious because you that that explanation and being, that 20-some-year-old in this, I would argue, kind of male dominated world of meat, right? Like in general, that what is it like, or what was it like being a, female Hispanic in that kind of like male dominated world, like, and going through in the meat world, I should say. Like, what is that like for you?
Well, if you remember in the book, Aaron, I do mention that my biggest challenge was my mother. Let's start
Mm,
there.
mm,
She grew up in a time where women did not work in a man's field.
yeah.
It was unheard of, and it was a battle in trying to convince her to allow me to go to
Hmm.
college and study agriculture. And of course, it goes back to my ag teacher, Mr. Juan Flores, who convinced her and showed her how
Yeah.
the world was changing, all by just simply by taking her with us on these
Wow.
livestock judging practices and competitions, where she would sit in the stands and we were down in the arena, right? The
Mm,
floor level, all these livestock classes, market classes, and breeding classes set up. And she's the one who comes to the realization that there are more females competing.
wow.
Oh, she was not happy. She was not happy. But I was able to convince her to let me go to college because I had received a full ride scholarship to judge livestock at
Mm,
Clarendon College up in Clarendon,
mm,
Texas. And so that was probably the beginning. Then as I progressed,
mhm,
or as my college journey progressed, there weren't very many of me's out there.
Yeah.
I can remember even at Clarendon College, we were probably three out of what 500 or 1,000 students. When I transitioned to Texas Tech University, it transferred, at least in animal science and food
Yeah.
sciences, I may have been one of five students, right? And then graduate school was the same way. But
Mhm.
the one thing that I do have to say is that I don't know if it was a challenge for me because I had such great mentors.
Wow.
And I don't know if they just saw something in me or they wanted me to stand out. I don't know.
Mhm.
But the fact that I'm bilingual helped
Mhm.
me help them with research at feedlots or packing
Mhm.
plants or out at the ranch or whatever it was, right? But
Mhm.
for some reason, I was blessed to have such great mentors. The
Mhm.
challenge for me, though, as being a female truly came, in addition to my mother, was when
Mhm.
I went into the industry, as I had just explained, that just example of now having to serve in a supervisor role. The industry was tough.
Yeah.
I have to admit, and I had to figure out how I was going to maneuver that. Not only was I a female, but I was an educated female, right?
Yeah.
And let's not forget, I'm from South Texas. I mean, we're not Mexican, but we're not
Mhm.
white. We're in our own class. And
Yeah.
so even with me speaking Spanish, in some cases, it still wasn't enough to be
Mm.
accepted by some of the employees. So, but there were so many lessons learned. And to date, when I go to Texas, I will take my meat judging teams to practice as we're preparing for a competition in Texas. And
Yeah.
sometimes I still see these employees. And
Wow.
and all we do is grin at each other.
That's amazing. All those years later, right?
And so it I don't want to portray that it's been a delight this whole
Mhm.
time. I mean, I've had to get serious and really think through the human behavior side of some of the people that I've encountered
Mhm.
because I was a female, because I was an educated female and a Hispanic. But
Yeah.
um, but I will tell you though, I am very big on being personable. I try to find the commonality between me and the individual and then capitalize on that to help build trust. That because we all have something in common. That is
Mhm.
one thing I have learned over the years is we may look different, but I
Yeah.
bet I can find something in common that you and I are just going to catch on to and
Yeah.
then just take off from there.
Yeah.
But now
It's great.
today, Adam, there's so many Hispanics
Mhm.
students out there that, we were in a conference at St. Paul, Minnesota in June, and I was walking around with some colleague friends of mine, and I did notice there were more Hispanic, more Latinos,
Mhm.
which it's good. It's good,
Yeah.
right?
So, Lyda, a lot of things that you wrote about in the book, and I mean, I know there's a lot of takeaways, but if somebody was to walk away with, let's just say, one big takeaway or theme or thought, like what are some of the things that you'd want your readers to know when they walk away from reading your work?
That's a good question. I would say believe in yourself because this is your
Mhm.
journey, and you have to trust the process, as I mentioned
Yeah.
in the book. But it starts here, and
Mhm.
know have a have a vision of where you want to go,
Yeah.
and stay focused on that vision. But take chances, take
Yeah.
risks, because you never know when that one door that closes suddenly makes you turn right, and now this new door leads you down something as it did with me. I mean, that I will tell you, I have 11 years of education starting from the third or the 3-year-old program. Right?
Mhm.
25 years in total and 11 years of college. And the risks that I have taken, some have
Mhm.
been nice and some have not, but it always led me to something else.
Hmm. Maybe with some of the time left here, I do want to kind of bring it present day and maybe tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing over at the Ohio State University, please.
Okay. So here at Ohio State, I'm an associate professor of meat science, where I predominantly teach undergraduate meat science classes. I also oversee the meat judging team. I serve as a coordinator, but I'm currently serving as the coach right now.
Mm,
But I'm also one of two extension meat specialists for the whole state of Ohio.
mm,
So what does that mean? That means that my job is to serve community needs, stakeholder needs, whoever
mhm,
needs my help. I'm to serve. A lot of my work, a lot of my research, we'll start
mm,
with research, is really applicable. It's very basic science. So if a meat processor comes to me with a problem and I
mm,
think that it is worthy of using as an undergraduate research project or even a
mm.
master's project, I'll finagle a way to make it the project, but still serve the processor.
Yeah.
Um, I work a lot, or I work towards, or I tend to focus on workforce development.
Mm,
That has always been a major focus of mine, even as a graduate student in Texas. And if you know today, our workforce labor is hurting,
yeah.
and at least in the meat industry, here at Ohio in Ohio, I see it even with the smaller processors. So I work with our Ohio Department of Agriculture a lot. I work with Jobs
Mm,
Ohio. I work with whomever is interested in the field of workforce development, but
yeah.
in the realm of the meat industry.
Mm,
But then again, I also focus on higher education. I mean, as I tell people, I want to corrupt everybody with meat science, right? But you also have to start young. So the higher education piece, I offer a lot of
yeah.
extension programs for our youth, like Ohio 4-H and FFA, and even adult learners,
Mm,
because the parents are part of the equation. I mean, if
mm.
you think back to what I just said about my mother, she wasn't, she was a part of the decision making
Oh,
process.
yeah.
I mean, and so I always keep that in mind. And so,
Yeah.
so higher education, workforce development,
Mm,
um, I would say puts me in a nutshell.
yeah. Well, Lyda, first off, it's been, great having you on the show today, learning more about you, your background, of course, celebrating the book release. Yes, we finally made it. Well, I just have to ask, what's next? What's next for you? What's next for your career?
Well, I have 2 more years before I'm up for a full professor, and I aspire to be a college administrator someday.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see where my road takes me, but at
Mhm.
least once I'm full professor, that's where I'd like to go, is into administration at the
Amazing.
collegiate
And,
level.
and we'll all trust the process. If there's one thing we learned here today, right?
That's right. I love it.
Well, again, it's been great having you on the show, and if somebody wants to, follow your journey in general, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I would say, well, first of all, I'm always open to conversations. I'm
Mm,
not hard to find here at Ohio State and
yeah.
Department of Animal Sciences, but talk to your agri-science teachers.
Mm,
Um, a lot of them are connected to. I mean, we're a small world, but we're a big world at the same
mm,
time.
mm,
Um, Call some universities, right? I mean, especially your land grant
yeah.
institutions. That's what we're here for, is to serve community needs. And so
Mm,
don't hesitate to do a little homework and
yeah.
email people or call them.
Yeah.
But because you have to remember that this is your journey, not
Yeah.
ours. But it's our job to help.
Awesome. All right. Well, again, really appreciate you coming on. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. Hope you learned a lot. Hey, don't forget, pick up a copy of that book. The link will be in the show notes. And if you haven't already, and this is your first time with Mission Matters, we're all about bringing on business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, and experts, and having them share their mission, the reason behind their mission, what gets them fired up and motivated to go out there in the world and make a difference. If that's the type of content that sounds interesting or fun or exciting to you, we welcome you. Hit that subscribe button. We have many more mission-based individuals coming up on the line, and we don't want you to miss a thing. Lyda, again, it's been so much fun, and I look forward to continuing to promote this book with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.